Hello beautiful people, I'm Uncle Fidget. Completing Pokemon Crystal with only a Pichu wasn't as difficult as I was expecting, so let's try something that I know will at least start off stupidly difficult. That's because this week I'll be finding out if you can beat Pokemon Emerald with only a Spoink. As far as base stats are concerned, Spoink actually measures up reasonably well, being around the same power as a first form starter. Where this challenge gets interesting, however, is in the moveset. For you see, Spoink is one of the very few Pokemon who start off only knowing Splash, which, if you somehow don't know, does absolutely nothing. It's not until level 7 that they finally learn Psywave, which itself is not the greatest move, only doing between 50 and 150% of our level in damage, so at level 7, between 3 and 10. Just like my last run, I'll only be allowed to use Spoink in battle, but I'll be allowed to have other Pokemon for HMs. I can't use items in battle, but held items and items outside of battle are fine. Before we get going, don't forget to leave a comment predicting how high of a level I'll have to beat Steven. I used the Universal Randomizer to replace Torchic with Spoink, as I figured Mudkip would be the hardest to deal with. I named my Spoink Spam, and for the first time in one of my challenges, I soft reset for a specific Spoink. I wanted a nature that gave me a bonus to my special attack, and preferably the ability Thick Fat, which would effectively give us resistance to fire and ice type attacks. So, how to beat our rival? Well, we can't do it whilst we only have Splash, so we need to train to level 7. Unlike in other games in the series, however, there's no Pokemon on the 2 routes available to us before fighting our rival that have no attacking moves like Metapod. So the solution I had to use was to run into a fight, use one of our Splashes, and then if the wild Pokemon missed, or used a status move, I ran away, saved, and did it again. If they attacked me instead, I had to reset. After a long time of repeating this process, I finally use up all 40 of my power points, so it's off to the market to grab a bunch of potions and start struggling my way to level 7. Once I learn Psywave, I go ahead and take on May. The fight went surprisingly well as we managed to take out her Mudkip in 3 hits and only take a tackle. So we can now move on to the next town, and oh no. Apparently I can't do that because the first trainer I'm required to battle has a Dark-type Poochyena, so Psywave will have no effect. Luckily though, now that I have access to this route, I can take on Routes, who has no attacking moves, so wasting my power points is much easier. It was at this point I started hoping this wouldn't become a trend, but almost to set me straight, we head into Petalburg Woods and run into an Acrogrunt, who, you guessed it, has a Poochyena. So I'm back to wasting my moves on unsuspecting Silcoon before I can struggle my way past this battle. I go ahead and do a bit of training before taking on Roxanne to reach level 16, when Spam learns Psywave, which is a strong enough move to one-shot both of her Geodudes. Nosepass puts up more of a fight, only taking around 1/3 of its health from a single hit, which means that due to its berry and Roxanne drowning it in potions, it takes us a while to put it down. But we're never in too much danger, so with that we can move on to Dewford, after we save Mr. Brownie's Wingull from the Acrogrunt with a... Broly is the next gym leader, and his Pokemon are all fighting types, so Spam simply one-shots his entire team. A more difficult fight is the one at Slateport City. We have to save Captain Stern from 2 Acrogrunts, one after another, which would usually be no problem, but as the first one starts out with a Carvanha, who is another dark type, I have to try and take them both on using only Struggle. Thanks to Spam's huge level advantage though, we managed to breeze through these 2. Once they're dealt with, I can head downstairs to ensure I never have to use this Struggle strategy ever again, as this wonderful Aqua team member grants us the TM for Thief. This will make life so much easier in the future. In fact, it became so easy that our next real challenge wouldn't be until we reach Norman. Wattson has given me issues in the past by constantly paralyzing my Pokemon, but Spam simply wasn't having any of it. We one-shot his Voltorb and Electrike, then confuse his Magneton for good measure, as all of our moves are resisted, and although we get paralyzed, we manage to whittle him down without taking any real damage. I then confuse his Manectric too for good measure, which makes him hit himself twice, putting him in range of a Psybeam. Once defeated, Wattson gives us the TM for Shockwave, which offers us some much needed coverage against the plethora of water types in Hoenn. It also gave us a stronger move to use against dark types, like Maxie's Mightyena, who, thanks to a lucky crit, gets one-shot. His Zubat obviously can't stand up to an electric move, and his Camerupt simply wastes time trying to set up and guzzling a super potion before we're able to use our new powerful move Psychic to finish them off. On to the hottest gym leader in Hoenn. Flannery's Numel falls to one Psychic, but as I was rushing at this point of the challenge, I hadn't gone to the Pokemon Center. So not only was I not at full health, but my PP for Psychic was incredibly low. So against Slugma, I decided to reserve my points and go for a simple 2-hit KO with Shockwave instead. Or at least it would have been if she hadn't used one of her Hyper Potions. But other than Slugma having a chance to set up the sun, she gives us nothing to worry about. I can't use Shockwave against Camerupt as it's part ground type, so it's back to Psychic, and she holds on with a tiny amount of health before busting out the Attract. Flannery then uses another Hyper Potion as we get immobilized by Love. I use Thief in order to keep her from using another one and break through Love, and for some inexplicable reason, her Camerupt uses Tackle, which basically just tickles Spam. We break through our infatuation once more to finish her Camerupt with one more Psychic. Onto her Ace Torkoal. Psychic does around 2/3 of her health, but she goes for another scummy attract. It's to no avail, however, as Spam breaks through to finish Torkoal off with one final psychic. Despite what this footage may suggest, Norman did take me a couple of attempts. On this run, however, I didn't lose a single hit point. Both Spinnet and Vigoroth go down in a single psychic, but we all know it's Slacking who's the problem with this gym. I start off by confusing him, but in return we get hit by a yawn. Psychic doesn't even do half damage, so we go to sleep, and would be in trouble, but I came prepared with a Chesto Berry. So Spam is up and back in the action. Our next psychic is a critical hit, so we finish Slacking off and move on to Linu. Another psychic leaves him with a sliver of health, meaning his belly drum fails, thankfully. We use psychic again, and once again leave him on like 1 HP before Norman hyper potions again, so this time we go for Shockwave to keep him out of range of doing it again, before finishing him off with our last psychic. Next on our to-do list is to pick up the red-headed stepchild of our HARROWING playthroughs from the Weather Institute. That means making our way through the Aqua admins, who thought that having a team of dark types would help them take on Spam, but they were sorely mistaken. Even Mightyana's super effective bite only does 1/5 of our health before Spam dispatches them. With the admin defeated, we are gifted Castform, who we won't even need for Tate and Liza in this run, as I already have HM slaves available to do that job. So, into the PC you go. The next gym leader we have to face is Winnona, whose flying type Pokemon shouldn't give us too much trouble thanks to Shockwave, but we all know our ace Pokemon can be tricksy. Swablu faints to one Shockwave, as you might expect, but as Tropius takes neutral damage from electric type moves, I instead decide to hit it with a Psychic, landing a critical hit to Okoer. Pelipper is quad weak to electric, so naturally a Shockwave finishes her off too, and it's on to Skarmory. Due to her bulk, she managed to hang on from our first hit and lands a Steel Wing, taking a good chunk of our health, and then of course Winnona pulls out the potions. After a few turns of taking her into red health and Winnona immediately healing her back up, we're finally able to finish her off and move on to Altaria. We hit an incredibly powerful Psychic that did just over half damage, but she sets up a Dragon Dance, so I start to get nervous. I needn't have worried though, as although we get nailed by a powered up Earthquake on the next turn, it's not enough to finish us off, so one more Psychic wins us the match. With that done, I go ahead and climb to the top of Mount Pyre, where Archie proves that he's either colorblind or simply an idiot. More importantly, this marks the point of the challenge where things start to ramp up. Maxie can't accept his own failures, so decides to blame us, as we're the closest scapegoats to him. So I have to beat him in a battle to teach him how to take responsibility for his own shortcomings. I start by confusing Mightyana, as he'll usually do the same to us with Swagger, and we don't even get the benefit of the boosted attack damage, as all of our moves are special. Luckily, he hits himself in confusion on the first turn, so we start our barrage of shockwaves. We take a Scary Face, which drastically lowers our speed, so that his Mightyana is now faster than us. Maxie drops a Super Potion, which surprised me, as surely it should be a Hyper Potion by this point in the game. But regardless, it means it only takes 2 more hits to finish him off, when combined with the recoil damage he takes from using Takedown. Next out is Crobat, who confuses us, but we manage to break through to put him down with a Psychic. Last out is Cameron. We once again break through confusion to land a Psychic, but take a powerful Earthquake in return that drops us to just 17 HP. Maxie once again uses a Super Potion, but it's not enough to save him, as Spam snaps out of confusion and lands one final Psychic to teach Maxie his lesson. Before taking on Tate and Liza, I go ahead and grab the black glasses, to make Thief as powerful as it can be, but honestly I'm not sure how helpful it will be. I had to make Spam grow all the way to level 68 before I even stood a chance in this gym, and the easiest way to do that was to repeatedly fight the news reporters across the map, and as they fight you as a double battle, you'll notice that HM the Marl has grown quite a few levels. Not to worry though, as they still won't survive their first round. I aim straight for Claydol with a powered up super effective Thief, and do around half of their health and damage. Marl soaks up a Psychic from Xatu, before Claydol nails us with an Earthquake. On the next turn though, we're able to finish off Claydol, leaving Xatu to set up the sun. I Oko Xatu with a Shockwave, and thanks to my soft resetting at the beginning of the game, even with the sun up, Solrock's Flamethrower does next to nothing to us. Now knowing that I'm basically safe from Solrock, my task was to finish off Lunatone before they could set up too much. Thief does over half their health, but a Citrus Berry brings them out of range of another taking them out, and as expected, they start setting up Calm Minds. I actually misclicked on my next attack and went for Solrock by mistake, proccing their Citrus Berry too, but allowing Lunatone to get off a Psychic, which does surprisingly little, so victory is almost guaranteed. Or so I thought. Another Thief doesn't finish off Lunatone and they go for a Hypnosis. Luckily, we avoid it, and after soaking up a Solar Beam from Solrock, we finish them off with another Thief, leaving only Lunatone to get through. They hit us with one last Psychic, but it's not enough, as one more Thief wins us our 7th badge. Maxie is still causing trouble over in the Space Center, so we have to team up with Steven to take him and his crony down. Now at level 69, nice. Spam makes quick work of his team. I focus down Maxie's Pokemon who were all at higher levels, leaving the Grun's camera up to simply keep setting up Amnesias. Shockwave drops Mightyana, Psychic puts down Crobat, and although our first Psychic against his camera up does maybe 1/3 of his health, for some reason our second one finishes him off. without even critting, which I still don't understand. Despite the Grunt's camera up having spent the entire fight so far boosting its special defense, Psychic still takes half his health in a single hit. Both he and Steven finally decide to attack now, Metang using Metal Claw and Cameron going for a takedown, neither really affecting the battle as a whole. I preserve PP and finish him off with Thief before breezing through both his Golbat and Mightyena. Golbat gets one shot and Mightyena barely holds on from a Shockwave, but only wastes time using Scareface before getting knocked out next turn with Thief. That means it's time to go beat up that pirate wannabe Archie. Shockwave isn't enough to one-shot Mightyena, so we get confused with Swagger, allowing Archie to use a super potion to heal up. You know, I'm starting to think this is a statement about how much money these people who have had to resort to crime have to their name. Maybe a social commentary on how the working class are forced to resort to criminal means to feel like they're being heard in society. Or maybe not. Regardless, our second Shockwave crits and takes him out. Crobat will get one shot, but we hit ourselves in confusion before getting nailed by a wing attack. Fortunately, next turn we snap out of it and are able to drop Crobat and face off against his final Pokemon, Sharpedo, who we outspeed at this level, so one more Shockwave puts Archie in his place. After angering the two great beasts of legend by showing them the wrong glowy stone, I'm forced to awaken an ancient dragon, who flies down from the heavens to say, "Oi, you two, stop it, or I'll have to smack your bottom." With Calamity averted, I can go back to my real task and collect the final gym badge. It's still surprising me that the TM I got from the second gym leader is serving me so well, but it's enough to one-shot both Love Disc and Crawdon. Whiscash is of course immune to electric moves, but that doesn't mean he can stand up to a Psychic. After that, it's back to Shockwave to put down Celio, and all that's left is Kingdra. He hangs on from a Psychic and starts trying to be annoying by using Double Team, before Juan busts out the Hyper Potion. Unfortunately, Spam misses his next attack, so I swap over to using Confuse Ray to be a bit annoying myself, actually managing to make Kingdra hit himself. In order to prevent Juan from using another Hyper Potion, I go for Shockwave, as it can't miss, and drops Kingdra to around half health. We take a Water Pulse in return, but despite critting, it barely touches us, allowing one more Psychic to bring the match home. Finally, I can progress to the Pokemon League. You may have noticed I've failed to mention either Wally or May since my first match with her. Well, that's because they offered me no trouble at all, and the battles simply weren't interesting enough to bring up. So, Elite Four time. And unfortunately for us, it starts with Sidney, the Dark-type master. That being said though, he only actually has two Dark-type attacking moves across his entire team. He starts off with Mightyena, who tanks a Shockwave, and tries lowering our accuracy with Sand Attack before going down. Next out is Shiftry, who's more annoying than dangerous, so I go ahead and confuse him before swapping to Shockwave. Amazingly, he actually hits himself 3 times in a row, allowing us to get him down to the smallest amount of health before Sidney just restores him back to max HP and we have to start all over again. As is often the case though, on the same turn he heals, we land a crit, taking him back down to a little over half health. Sidney then switches out, choosing to bring in Cacturn to soak up yet another crit. He manages to hang on from our next attack though, and drops our speed with Cotton Spore before we're able to finish him off. Shiftry comes back in, and now that he's faster than us, he uses Torment so that we can't just keep spamming Shockwave, and I'm forced to swap to using Thief instead. We get swaggered and confused, and Thief barely hurts Shiftry, allowing him to set up double teams as we hurt ourselves on the next turn. Finally deciding to attack, Shiftry goes for an extra Sensory. That does very little before we're able to break through confusion and his increased evasiveness to land one final Shockwave and finish him off. Last out is Crawdon, who I'd have been able to one-shot if it wasn't for Torment preventing me from using Shockwave. So instead, I go for a Confuse Ray as Crawdon sets up his Source Dam. Unfortunately for him, that raised attack works against him as he hits himself in confusion, and we're able to end this battle with another Shockwave. On to Phoebe, and another match where we're at type disadvantage. Dusclops usually waste time using Protect, so to preserve PP I use Confuse Ray, and my suspicions are confirmed. After that, I can fairly safely go for a Psychic, and testing her luck, Phoebe attempts to use Protect again, but it fails, allowing us to take Dusclops down into red health. And of course, she then brings out the full restore, but another Psychic drops her back into red. After she's finished messing around with Protect again, I finish her off with a Shockwave. Bayonet, fortunately, doesn't have the natural bulk to withstand a Psychic, so both of them go down in one hit. Her second Dusclops takes around 2/3 damage from a Psychic, but nails us with a Shadow Ball, doing the same in return. Despite her berry though, it's not enough to save her from one more hit finishing her off. All that's left is Sableye, and due to our Dark typing, we can't use our strongest move. As such, I use Confuse Ray instead, and manage to make her hit herself. I swap to Shockwave and put her below half health, and luckily she only manages to hit herself again. So with one more attack, we move on to Glacia. Her team is incredibly bulky, and she has a seemingly endless supply of healing items, so I had to play this one smart in order to stop her from outlasting me. I start off with Thief against Celio, doing little damage and letting her set up the hill, but it's just enough that a Shockwave will be able to take her down from here. I confuse Glalie and make her hit herself, as I continue to take chip damage from the hail. Psychic leaves her in low health, and fortunately she misses an Icy Wind, but of course Glacia rushes in with a full restore. Another Psychic drops her back to red health, but I'm quickly running out of PP, so I have to swap to Shockwave to finish her off. I hope she might want to save a full restore for her Wall Ray, so I risked using a Psychic, dropping her second Glacia to red health too, and thankfully she doesn't heal, and we're able to put it down with a Shockwave. Next out is another Celio, and although we're once again able to get them into red health, we not only get infatuated, but also give her yet another chance to heal. To be fair, getting her that low was an unlucky roll as proved by my next attack, only landing her in yellow health, which then meant I could knock her out next turn. Last out is the Wall Ray, and I use my last Psychic to do as much damage as possible. We tank a Body Slam, and after a berry, Wall Ray is left on around half health, allowing us to end this fight with one last Shockwave. After drowning myself in Ethers, I press on to Drake, who usually acts as a sort of brick wall in these challenger runs, who I can't overcome until I go away and grind up beyond level 80. Spam, however, refused to take such a cheap victory. Much like Phoebe's Dustclops, Shelgon will often spend his first turn using Protect, so I go for a Confuse Ray to once again reserve PP, before landing a Psychic on the next turn to take the Oko. I knew Flygon could withstand a Psychic, so I once again use Confuse Ray and get lucky with him hitting himself. Our next Psychic then high rolls its damage to bring him down. Salamence would terrify most Pokemon who stood against him, but not Spam. He nails Salamence with a Psychic, avoids a Rock Slide, and then finishes him off on the next turn. Altaria is last out and takes around half health from a Psychic, does more damage to himself by using Double Edge, ensuring his defeat one turn later. We had finally made it to Wallace. This time, without the ridiculous grind past level 80 that was usually required. This time, I was sure I could do it. But again and again, Spam fell at this final hurdle. My only chance of victory seemed to be unobtainable luck, or retreating and accepting the grind. That is, until I checked my bag. I'm not sure when I picked it up, but somewhere along my journey, I'd obtained TM04, Calm Mind. I won't lie, I kind of felt like an idiot. The hours I'd spent soft resetting my way through the Elite Four had been all in vain. All I needed to do in this final battle was set up correctly. I start with a Psychic on Wailord, dropping them to yellow health as they set up the raid. I do this because they have Water Spout, which does more damage the more health Wailord has, so I need to hit them early. Wailord was actually on such low health that Wallace would use a full restore, and that gave me a free turn to use Calm Mind. With only one up, I was suddenly able to take out Wailord in one hit. Wallace then sent out Tentacruel, who's weak to Psychic, so of course fell in one hit. Next was Ludicolo, who was my ideal opportunity to build up my Calm Minds. As I set up myself, he too tried to use Double Team, hoping to avoid my powered up moves. After a few more Calm Minds though, all I had to do was use Shockwave, which, remember, can never miss, and drop him to half health. He foolishly again tries to use Double Team, not realizing it would be the last thing he'd ever do. Whiscash too falls to one Psychic, and thanks to Gyarados' quad weakness to Electric, a single Shockwave was all I needed against him. Meaning all that stood between me and victory was my low tech. Even with all of my setup, I wasn't convinced Psychic would be enough to one-shot. So instead, I used Thief to not only do a little bit more damage, but also take his berry for good measure. Spam eats up a Surf before landing one last Psychic to claim his victory and place in the Hall of Fame. With Wallace defeated, the credits roll, but we have one last fight before we can call this challenge complete. In the depths of a cave, we find Steven Stone and challenge him to a battle to end all battles. Before this fight, however, I decided to finally grind to level 85 and got rid of Thief for Double Team, just for good measure. Against Skarmory, I set up my Double Teams, but know I can only get away with this a few times before he switches to Aerial Ace, which means he'll never miss. Unfortunately, I do get nailed with Steel Wing, taking half of my health in one hit. This is why Double Team is imperative for this fight, as I simply can't withstand any of Steven's attacks should they land. I'm able to get into more Double Teams, managing to avoid his attacks as I do so. But I also know that with my current power, Shockwave won't be enough to one-shot, so I have to go for Calm Mind. Then, because I'm greedy, I go for another. I actually managed to get away with it, so I push my luck further and go for a third. For some reason, he still refuses to use Aerial Ace, instead choosing to set up Spikes, which will have no effect in this battle. With all my setup in place, I bring Skarmory down in one Shockwave. Cradily is out next, and I have to go back to finishing my setup. I'm still not strong enough to deal with Metagross. So, after I spent another few turns raising my evasiveness as high as it will go, as well as my special defense and attack, I'm ready to end Cradily, with him never managing to land a hit against us. Even fully buffed, Metagross still manages to hang on from a Shockwave, but as they miss their attack and heal themselves out of full restore range with a berry, another Shockwave finishes them off. With them out of the way, I use Psychic on Claydol, again, still not managing to take them down in one, but we avoid an Earthquake and take them out next turn. Aggron may look intimidating, but he lacks Special Bulk, so one Psychic allows us to move on to Steven's last Pokemon, Armaldo, who also perishes to one Psychic. And with that, I have successfully beaten Pokémon Emerald with only a Spoink. From humble beginnings where he only knew Splash, Spoink managed to rise through the ranks of Pokémon to become the very best, especially after I realized I had access to Calm Mind. These challenges are incredibly taxing and hard to keep up with on a weekly basis, so I'll be doing them sporadically from now on, interlaced with other types of videos like theories or top 10s, that sort of thing. So if you don't want to miss out on all the new content I have coming your way, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and until next time, I'll catch you later. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, ring the bell, do all the YouTube things, and I shall see you on the next episode.